Nabiyu Asfa.
Hi, thank you. My name is Nebiyu Asfa. I'm a community organizer in the Ethiopian community, which represents the second largest foreign-born population in the state of Colorado, with our roots in East Colfax. My role in the community includes organizing the annual Taste of Ethiopia Festival and co-chairing the Ethiopian American Development Council. Ethiopians have been making significant contribution to the economic development and cultural richness of Denver since the 70s, and we're proud to call the city home. Unfortunately, though, over the past decade, our community has been on an exodus to Aurora. This is largely due to the consequence of hyperdevelopment and gentrification that has effectively pushed out many minority and immigrant communities from Denver. East Colfax and the far northeast Denver have been the exceptions in this, where our community has been able to stay and prosper, where we have become significant contributors as small business owners, homeowners, and positive cultural influencers. However, in the East Colfax neighborhood, many in the community feel that our fate is uncertain and are anticipating to deal with displacement, which has already begun. The reason for displacements are many, including the city's nuisance ordinance, which has been weaponized to close down many women, minority, and family-owned small businesses on East Colfax Avenue. The writing is already on the wall. Denver is increasingly becoming a different town, one that does not include us. This is why, by large, our community is fearful of the East Colfax Development Plan oppose tax incentives like TIF to private developers that have a track record of destroying communities around Denver. By large, we agree in the principle to revitalize East Colfax. However, we oppose the status quo approach. The status quo has failed us throughout Denver. Take, for example, the great promises. All these great promises were also made to 5 points. However good the intentions may have been, the end results were displacement and gentrification. Also, let's look at other neighborhoods like Rhino, Stapleton, or Laurie. Have the promises been kept? Where are the affordable houses? Where is the racial equity, diversity, culture, or the inclusive character that represents the spirit of Denver? Is this the type of neighborhood we want to turn East Colfax into? Is there a place for the poor and working class in this city? As you consider your votes today, I would like to kindly ask you to consider who will benefit from this change. Are we setting up the foundation and institutional framework for displacement? Are we putting a target on the backs of East Colfax residents and small business owners? Are we creating an environment that incentivizes the wrong people? With all these challenges, East Colfax is a beautiful neighborhood with character, beautiful people, and culture worth preserving. Please vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Thomas Fessing. Go ahead.
Jesse Parrish, representing for Denver Homeless Out Loud, Black Star Action Movement for Self-Defense, and Positive Action Committee for Social Change. And I was on top of the ballot for at large, May 2019, got almost 15,000 votes with no money. I'm neither for or against this, as the previous staters have already stated. We have a crisis in the city. We have a housing crisis. We have 23,000 vacant apartments that need to be filled. But yet we want to redevelop all these areas of town for who? This area is predominantly black and brown neighborhood. It's been that way since as long as I've been living, which is 32 years. So why was this neighborhood blighted for so long, for 30 plus years? Why was there no kind of development going on the past 20 years in this neighborhood? It just leads into the degradation. This was caused. This is cause and effect. We don't need any more unintended consequences. You guys don't understand. You're literally gentrifying the whole city. Every side of town is being gentrified. North, east, west, south, and north. East, west, and south is being gentrified. We are being ethnically cleansed out of our neighborhoods. I am a native of 5 Points in East Denver, and I do not feel safe at home or welcome in my own neighborhoods that I was born and raised in and grew up in. So what we want to know is how many affordable units are going to be built in this neighborhood, exactly who is going to be residing in this neighborhood, because like we've already stated, we are being gentrified, ethnically cleansed out of the city. So who is this being built for? Who is this being redeveloped for? Because obviously it's not for us, because when we were here for the past 20, 30 years, you guys did not care one bit about what was going on, and this is why the degradation occurred, and this is why the deterioration occurred. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've lived it. I've lived in these motels on facts in this neighborhood. This is purposely being done, and we are not going to sit up here and sit around and allow you to keep continuously doing this. So I want to know exactly how many affordable units are going to be built, what the AMI level for these units is going to be, because I know Saturdays is being turned into affordable housing, but I want to know what the AMI level is going to be, because we need 0 to 30% housing across the board, and we don't need areas of concentrated poverty. So if you're going to build 0 to 30% housing, you need to do it in every single neighborhood, every single district, not just in certain districts. We don't want the same thing to happen in this neighborhood that happened on the west side in Sun Valley, that happened on the north side in Sunnyside, and what happened on the east side in 5 Points. So if somebody could please answer my questions, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Next up, Tim Roberts.
Thank you. I am an unpaid volunteer, and I need some training. Let me thank, first of all, the people. I'm Tim Roberts, live in Denver, East Colfax business owner and president of the East Colfax Registered Neighborhood Organization. I want to thank the people of East Colfax who have so far stepped up to grapple with this complex issue. I don't think it's easy. Thank you. We look at East Colfax, which is close to 70% folks struggling to keep their homes, well over 30% in poverty. And we know that Dura does not have a record of protecting these communities. They seem, in many instances, to have accomplished the opposite. For example, we know about the displacement in 5 Points. We know about the severely homogeneous community in Stapleton. How could we then be expected to stand by for any phase of a plan constructed by an organization that still tells us the city needs to be, quote, revitalized, or that areas where people currently live are, quote, blighted? We had a well-publicized and well-attended RNO meeting with the most vigorous debate I've seen in this RNO. We were lucky enough to have the Dura director attend, and we argued back and forth for quite some time. The debate went on so long, people were complaining, vote already. And finally we did, and it was 8-4 against. Again, this was a show of hands. It was relatively informal. At this point, we're faced with a city council vote on a preliminary but deeply structural policy that very likely will have massive effects on the neighborhood, just like it has on other neighborhoods. And when we go and try to make predictions, what we see associated with Dura projects is a vast amount of displacement of exactly the populations we represent, not just once or twice, but for years on end, repeatedly not learning from things. Make no mistake, this vote is to stand with the people of East Colfax, because we are working with, but in some sense, under siege by the Dura-generated community to our north in Stapleton, another Dura project in the south in Lowry, and from the west by South Park Hill, now openly co-opting the East Area Plan. We are an outpost surrounded. We ask you to vote for a reset to an old school financial giveaway with a progressive mask. We own up to the truth that the value systems that are being overlaid on disadvantaged communities are themselves the blight we need to confront. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm here to vote. Hopefully y'all vote against. I've been in that community for a while, long time, most of my life. And when Dora said that they notify people, this is my notice. And it's just that there was a meeting tonight. I'm here because I feel that our area is very diverse. But I'm right off of Colfax. I'm on 15th and Colfax. So I'm literally right off of Colfax, 15th and Olive. So my area I've seen grow, but to me, if Dora wants to help the neighborhood, there's plenty of opportunity to go up and down that strip to help the people that are already in there. We have from barber shops, we have restaurants, we just got a new brewery, we have Ace Hardware, we have many, many things on that corridor. And most of them are, up to par in my standards. Some of them, yes, could use a paint job or whatever. But the area that is there, people there, they support the businesses, they support their neighbors, and everybody gets basically along. Yes, our neighbor, and when people keep saying affordable housing, what does that mean? Because my house now, when I bought it a long time ago, I couldn't afford to move back into that same house that I bought in 1980, which is very, very sad. So when you say affordable housing, what does that mean? It doesn't mean that you have to make over $100,000 like we do now, like 5 points, like we do probably in Swansea once they finish that new build. So when people say that, that's just a word. It doesn't mean that's what they mean. To me, it means they're affordable to them, not to the majority of the people. And when you have immigrants and all the other people, it has to be affordable to everybody. Currently, it's affordable to everybody. Otherwise, they would not be living there. So I vote for you guys. I asked you guys to vote no. Sure, Dora got plenty of money, but with that money, they can go. Like we just had a 7-Eleven built there. It's already closed down. Why? Nobody supported it. Nobody wanted it, so they didn't support it. It was there maybe 3 years. The building's still there, so if they want to, brand new building, Dora can go in there and work with the private or whoever they want to work with to upgrade that or get somebody in that building because it's brand new right on the corner of Colfax and Monaco. So there's plenty of opportunity for Dora instead of to come through, knock everything down with their developer, and then raise the price up so high that y'all just want to gentrify and just forget about the black and brown and those whites that are not making $100,000 a year. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Megan Tortorelli, and I'm on the board of the East Colfax Neighborhood Association, and I also live in the neighborhood. I'm here to urge Council to oppose the approval of the East Colfax Corridor Urban Redevelopment Area. Here's what I know. More than half of East Colfax residents are struggling and at risk of displacement. It seems certain that designating the East Colfax Corridor as an urban redevelopment area will accelerate gentrification and people will be forced to leave our neighborhood. The primary goal of our RNO this year has been to increase participation and better represent all of the more than 1,000 East Colfax residents. And if I have learned anything from the outreach process, it's that our neighbors have a real sense of fear that the city's agenda for East Colfax does not include many of its current residents. I am especially concerned about comments from last week's city council meeting and the picture they painted of Dura's outreach efforts. I'm paraphrasing here, but it was said that Dura has gone above and beyond to ensure that problems that often exist with urban redevelopment, such as displacement, will not happen in East Colfax. It was also stated that the city and Dura are doing everything they can to involve the community in this process. At best, those comments were a gross exaggeration of efforts that have been made. While it is true that Tracy and others from Dura have attended and presented at several East Colfax RNO meetings, it's completely disingenuous to say that extensive outreach has taken place in our community. There's been no attempt to include our most vulnerable neighbors in this conversation with Dura. Attending a few RNO meetings with 20 to 50 people in attendance is not the definition of doing everything that can be done to involve a community. I'm not naive, and I recognize that development is coming to East Colfax regardless of how the council votes tonight. But I have big concerns about incentivizing this development, particularly before East Colfax residents understand Dura's complex plan and the impact it will have on their ability to stay in their homes. Thank you.
Wanted to take a minute, having heard these presentations, as well as having recently completed our Race and Social Justice Initiative training as a body, and again, highlight several of my comments from last week. During our Race and Social Justice Initiative training, we discussed several times the policies that have impacted and exacerbated race and social injustice over time. Several times we saw that urban renewal has deepened race and social justice in our injustice in our country and our community here in Denver under the guise of helping us. Here we have a plan that was initiated in 2015 through the leadership of council members who are no longer members of this body for various reasons, one perhaps being that residents did not feel adequately represented by said representatives. 2015 was also a time when we were not aggressively acknowledging and mitigating our housing and displacement crisis. We have an area of town that this plan itself recognizes as high risk for displacement. We've heard several members of marginalized groups share their fears and concerns with this plan tonight through emails, through phone calls. 70% of residents are struggling to stay in the community, and this plan is attempting to incentivize private development. Most of them are not owners and instead are renters. They have a very different level of access to the improvements and planning that owners have and that have been discussed on other projects. Dura is determining blight, and the plan overall was not catalyzed by residents. In fact, outside of notice for this meeting, residents who are not property owners have claimed that they have not been a part of this process. There was a statement made that this plan, if this plan was accepted and relocation was required for displaced businesses and residents, that a feasible method exists to relocate them. That makes me very uncomfortable. I also understand that while we're not approving a TIF project, we're authorizing the use to generate funding for the promised improvements of future projects. TIF financing draws a boundary around the same neighborhood that's asking for affordability, and 70% are at risk of displacement, to impose those necessary taxes. That will effectively tax the properties in the area to pay for the new improvements, while tax increases and instability is one of the primary factors causing homeowner displacement across our city. This is already a Trump opportunity zone that incentivizes private development in the area with federal dollars. A denial tonight is not a permanent denial, but a 2-year pause while Denver recalibrates, as we have promised our residents we would, to address this housing crisis. Dura can also continue to work through their housing branch to help facilitate improvements along the corridor without the plan in place. We can also move forward with our upcoming neighborhood plans and decide if through those plans they still want to catalyze the same level of private development. I'm not comfortable with hoping that communities are organized enough to fight back and achieve the sometimes decent projects. That is too big of a risk to take right now, knowing that all of our families are facing, and I think Ms. Aguilar's thoughts have changed to realize how this might be used as a tool to mitigate displacement. I believe her original instinct was based on knowing the data we have. I'm going to have to again go with the many years and projects of proof we have to show that the urban renewal plans have corrected blight of poverty by eliminating the poor, Black and brown, and driving them out. We need to press pause. We watched the devastation of what happened with Welton Street and the redevelopment of that area. I respect my colleagues underscoring projects that had satisfactory outcomes, and we can do those projects on a project-by-project basis. We know a lot of change is coming to this corner of our city. We've heard multiple tools that are being utilized by NEST, and Ms. Aguilar has been in her role maybe a year at this point, and we need to give those efforts a chance to work without using the same tool that we know catalyzed massive disruption in several areas of town. So for this reason, I still do not support this plan.
I appreciate everybody for staying late, and my comments will be brief. You know, my husband and I, our first home was at 1960 Verbena, before Stapleton was redeveloped. And, you know, Saturdays was the location that we gave folks to make a left off of Colfax to get to our house. And there hasn't been the investment by the city in this area at all for decades, specifically Quebec and other areas. But what really came forward for me today was a great conversation with Neb. And I value your opinion, Neb, and I value that of the Ethiopian community. And I'm very concerned. I'm very concerned because I haven't heard tonight the plans that we need to really have in place to make sure that we are providing every resource possible to our residents and our businesses. And I can't, in good faith, vote on this tonight knowing that we don't have a predictive tool that is ready to roll out. We don't know how this investment will affect the property values of surrounding single-family homes and businesses, and how are they going to mitigate and navigate those rising property values? How, during this development, we're going to keep local businesses in the neighborhood. I didn't specifically ask the question, but I purposely didn't, because I wanted to hear someone tell me how for that barber shop, how for the dentist's office that was shared tonight, where are they going to go? What's the interim plans to make sure that they stay in the neighborhood? And so with that, I'm not going to be able to support this tonight because I don't feel like there's the infrastructure and the plans to support our most vulnerable residents and businesses. Thank you, President Clark.
Thank you, Councilwoman Gilmore.
Herndon?
Aye.
Sawyer?
Aye.
Black?
Aye.
Cedabaca?
No.
Flynn?
Aye.
Gilmore?
No.
Hines?
Aye.
Cashman? Kinich? Ortega?
Aye.
Sandoval? Torres?
Aye.
Mr. President.
Aye. Madam Secretary, please close the voting and announce the results.
2 nays, 11 ayes.
2 nays, 11 ayes. Council Bill 744 has passed.